Sat for 12 months, had a couple of minutes.
It's so weird how people just... I guess it's not weird. It's our nature. You forgive them, but...
America's all about second and third acts. America's always been about second and third acts.
But with John Jones, and this is what I said on yesterday's podcast, was how many times can we forgive him? I think, you know, when he pulled out of Canada, when he pulled out of the fight, he's like, I'm not fighting anyone else, and they canceled the card or whatever. People are like, Jesus Christ, man. And then hit him run.
Okay, this is S-Baz here.
We forgive him.
Looking for an improvement.
This time, there has to be a certain point, I think, this time. All right, man.
Well, you know what, though? America loves...
I like this weapon at the beginning because it's good at blasting away a bunch of tiny planes.
And now he is a guy...
And it shoots really fast, so it's good for accurately
so Americans love...
selecting the next weapon.
It's a question of how he deals with this, how he reacts.
I think you have to be real.
How sorry.
His number, and that's always been my knock on John. You know John. I've trained with John. He should just accept being the heel, being the dark knight, being the dark joker. Fuck everyone. This is me. I party all night. I'll come to the camp. I'll beat everybody up in here. I did 2-week camp for Ryan Bader. Beat the shit out. Easiest thing I've ever had. Well, Chill, I'm the best of all time.
You said
instead of I see him on ESPN and he did a laser, and he looked like a social studies teacher in 8th grade. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
What the hell is this?
You said before all this, and I don't know if he was doing. He certainly wasn't nearly as muscular as he is now. And you said that when you fought him, he was so strong you wanted out of there in the first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And you watched him, you didn't even see him train once. My question is, when he was that successful, doing kind of not training nearly as much, not lifting a lot, coming in there and just destroying dudes, why decide now that you're going to start, you know, getting on banned substances to get that edge? It's almost like he didn't need that.
Well, that's where the question comes from.
Was he always right?
Right. People will go, you were so good, you didn't need that stuff. But smart people will go, oh, you were so good because you were on that stuff. You know, that's where the balance comes in. But ultimately, people, they will forgive and forgive. He's just in a tough spot. He's never forgiven anybody. He's the first to bury people. People talk about rock bottom. John, we're not. Stuff that
not even close.
Hasn't been taught for.
Yeah, we're not even close.
Yeah, man, we're not even getting.
Rock bottom.
Right.
Let's get back to that.
You know what I love?
There's a ball that goes.
I love with you guys because you're in the game. You know him. You know the stories, and I love how you're kind of all both sort of talking around the subject.
It's guy code.
Of course. I respect it.
But Chill, you're the only guy fighting the world because you were a superstar, and then boom, suspended, off, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Your best analyst, all that stuff, no fight. So you know what John's going through. What a sane person right now? I think John is. I'm assuming he's like, holy shit, I messed up. I have to change.
Let me call Chael. Chael, help me.
You would think, look, he just can't get there. He wants to cling to whatever this fake idea of himself is. And this isn't even meant to be a knock on Johnson. It's just to try to be a reality in the situation. So what you just said a minute ago, Brandon, look, he's facing 2 years. There's no way around it. He can have all the excuses to make him believe him. He's got to sit for 2 years and he's been under the new rules of Nevada. It would serve him. The truth is always on your side, and it would serve him to come out and say, this and this, the timing was down, bad advice, whatever, but just tell the truth. He's on Google finding out where this stuff's at, and then come, rework the social time. Because this isn't the last time you stub your toe. That's what we said on the last one, the one before that, the one before. It's not. You have
what killed that plane? They run into each other?
It's not the last time you're going to stub your toe. So he's sitting 2 years either way. Come out these roads and trying to make himself a victim.
Wow, one shot killed all those planes. That must have been 10, 12 little planes.
You can't say the truth. I mean, come on, that takes a limited amount of courage.
Well, is there any way we'll peel this 2-year ban?
No, not with those tests. It's 2 years, dude.
Okay.
Do you think he comes back and everything's all good and he's pound the greatest and the story goes on and obviously he'll have his hiccups?
Yeah.
Or is it, you do?
Yeah.
Because he's missing the 2 glory years for sure. 29, 30 years old.
Yeah.
He's in his prime.
And you have to different way around it. There is things to go well soft where they could paint something. They hope they give you a little bit. Now, there's a lot that goes into that. You not only have to provide your supplements, but you have to put a doctor that at home. They will go to the store, they'll buy everything off the shelf, they'll run it through their lab. It's expensive, but if they could prove, hey, that's a cheap supplement, and that does matter these days. The supplement company in question, and John named him at the press conference, came out instantly.
That's what he messed up.
And if you want to go head to head, we will prove this isn't. So that one's off the board. So now he's got to come back to, well, look, I took this victory. I didn't know. Fair enough, you still took it, and there's 2 bands of it.
See, that's where he messed up. When you said him doing that press conference is unheard of, when you get with a lawyer, they can say, don't list a name. Let us do our research. We'll come up with a brand or something that you do have in it, and then we'll attack them. But for you to come out and say, all right, that's off the base. Well, thanks. It's just a bad idea. What you're saying is a bad idea.
And again, he didn't bring up this section thing.
No.
So he's not under oath there. This is why you don't want to. I hate to bear him there because I appreciate that he was even there. But the bottom line is this is why you shut your mouth. This is why you have the right to be silent. He was very clear as that. I'm not taking anything new that I haven't taken my entire career. As soon as he cracked that egg, he realized what he had done. He quickly tried to run it back to, oh, what? I do have new supplements coming. They're taking a few of the things. And people are like, what? A few of the things. And he tried to leave it at that. But if he would have brought it back then, actually, a party all night long. I'm still doing the show. Haven't caught for that again. Thank you very much. And then my penis doesn't work, so I took a shot at this, and it looks like now I'm kicking it. Okay.
Then why weren't you there doing the talking?
Then we're on board. Then we're on board.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, man, shit happens. All right, you're still the best in the world.
That's right.
Okay, 3 or 4 little planes got away right there. Let's see if that cost me.
While John Jones may be screwing up a lot, he may have all these problems outside of the octagon, inside the octagon, no one has been able to best him. And because of that, people are on his side, because people love winners. They just do. They love Mike Tyson when he was in his prime, and even when he came out of jail for alleged rape, he claims he never did it. I don't know what happened, obviously. But when he came out of jail, they were still rooting for him. I mean, here's a guy who, you have daughters, I have daughters. If you have...
Wow, I missed a turret.
Oh, boy, the worst case
that won't be a...
My daughter finds herself in a position where a man wants to physically do something that she doesn't want. People need to fuck. They were like, Mike Tyson's back.
Right.
He's back. He's looking angry. He's ripped now. He's been doing prison workouts.
Right.
There's something about a guy who's just a bad motherfucker that people love.
Yeah.
And there's a thing where they know that Daniel feels that. There's
Still
a thing
99.
where they know that Daniel knows that John is the guy who won the first fight, that John is a legitimate linear champion, that John is the undefeated fighter, and literally the only undefeated fighter at that level. There's no one, he has one loss to Matt Hamill, which is a bullshit disqualification from a dumb fucking rule.
Which you've said a million times. Nobody's more angry about that than you. John Jones is not as frustrated about that loss as you are. You hate that.
The rule is madness, and it only exists. I talked to Big John McCarthy about this extensively. It only exists because the commission is ignorant.
Sure.
They didn't understand that the brick breakers. It's not that hard to break a fucking brick, man. It seems crazy, but it's really just not, especially when they're spread wide like that. But John Jones has that aura of invincibility about him. Now, if he fought Rumble Johnson, and Rumble Johnson head kicked him into oblivion, and we see John with his toes curled, lying on his back snoring, which absolutely can happen to any human, then the whole thing would change. I think the walls would come tumbling down, and if John did a press conference and said he was 30 days sober, they would start booing him. They wouldn't give a fuck.
I think that's fair. Yeah, you're right. America does love success. Fans are front runners. They've got the right to be. But yeah, historically, that is how it worked. And when you talk about Rumble Johnson and John Jones, man, we got to get that matchup done.
They fucked up. I mean, the whole thing is fucked up in that hasn't happened, because he's in real danger with Glover. Like that air of invincibility was taken away from him by Daniel. Daniel beat him, and he broke him.
That
and
blows.
beat him down, took his back, choked him. And
I
you
think
could
it's
see
the same place I got that
Rumble
last time.
just having a real hard time
Yep.
with what was going on in that fight. He had given his all in that first
Should've got a
round.
foul.
Hit Daniel with a bomb, like literally took him off of his feet, sent him flying across the octagon. But Daniel was tough as fuck. He survived, he gutted it out, and then he imposed his superior wrestling and wound up winning. So we lost a lot there because that fight was supposed to be John Jones.
Man, I'm blowing at this game.
And John Jones and Rumble Johnson would have been fucking epic.
Yeah.
And that would have been really interesting to see what happens when a guy who hits like Rumble connects with a guy like John. And especially back then when we didn't know, what would happen. We know that Josh Koscheck had beaten him, that he had a real hard time in the later rounds when he was competing at 170. But we also knew that there's no fucking way he should have been at 170. Even when he fought Vitor at 185, it was kind of the same thing. He came out like a bat out of hell and then faded. And then we assumed, that he also missed 185 against Vitor.
By 7 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, he has a notorious problem with his weight.
Yeah.
So we kind of attributed a lot of his failures to that. And we see him at heavyweight, beat the shit out of Arlovsky, break his jaw in the first round, just tool him for 3. And we say, well, okay, Rumble at 205 is a fucking man. He missed that opportunity.
Yeah, I
This should
agree.
really
And,
make some headway here.
Rumble, Rashad, who trained with both John Jones and Rumble, says Rumble beats him. Now, Rumble only does have one problem. He is a front runner. He does fade a little bit, but that's a big storm that he brings. RDA fights that way. Amanda Nunes fights that way. I mean, her own teammates were saying, look, if she gets in the second, third round, I don't know about this, but she's going to bring a storm in that first round. And I don't think Misha can survive it. I talked to Dustin Ford, and he trains with a man, and he said that. He goes, well, if he gets in the later round, her percentage goes down. He said, but I think she's going to come out, she's going to put her foot on the gas, into the tank in the first. I don't think Misha's going to be around. He's right.
Isn't that fascinating, those fast twitch muscle fiber fighters, those ones who explode, the really dynamic ones? There's a fucking give and a take to everything.
Sure.
And those ones, they just don't survive into the third, fourth, and fifth round with the same pep.
So let's back up. I made a note here on the John Jones thing. Did you follow the whole John Jones drama and
The most recent one.
The only post-drama, was that he had a press conference the next day. Did you follow that press conference at all?
I saw the crime pictures.
Okay.
Sandy sent them to me.
All right. I went to that press conference, and there was a couple of takeaways. And this is all speculative, but first, this doesn't make John innocent at all. Well, John's guilty. They've got the stamp of guilty, but his actions were not that of a guilty man. Historically, guilty guys go bury their head in the sand. They try to outrun this thing. They get with their legal teams. They show up at the hearing. They hope for the worst, for the best. They get the worst, and they deal with it. John faced the music 12 hours later. He came through the hotel. His whole life.
Oh, crap.
I imagine he didn't sleep that night. He comes to the hotel with the fans. He comes into the media. PR 101 says you read a script that was written for you and you exit the stage. Instead, he read no script. He took every question asked of him. And that's just not what a guilty guy does. I understand that he's guilty in terms of USADA, but what we care about is intent. Was he trying to get over on somebody? Was he trying to hide something? His actions would represent that he didn't. But here was the problem with the press conference, Joe. When you hold a press conference, you have one goal in mind, which is to win over the media and that they say nice things about you before you do go home and bury your head in the sand. Secondly, you want to break something. You want to get something out there to get ahead of the story. That's the whole reason you show up at these things. The only card that he had to play is what did you test positive for. That was the only thing we didn't know.
Should have a million points by now.
And they refused to reveal it. So that was a little bit weird. And where I was sitting, because I've been in
100%.
And here was the thing that happened with me.
Okay.
We're talking about John. This whole thing's going on with John based on a test that took place on June 16th. The reason that's relevant, when I went through my thing, he tested positive for some estrogen blockers. Those don't really have anything to do with anything. They don't help you. They're silly.
I think you might have just revealed something.
Yeah, he tested positive for 2 estrogen.
Yeah, but no one else knew that.
There you go. I'm revealing it.
How dare you?
Yeah,
You broke personal information.
That's what we're doing here, though, right?
Wow, but this is the only way that anybody could find that out is if you talked about it.
Boom. It's out there, right? Isn't that what we're doing here? Aren't we creating some news? It's a big news day. But listen, here's the relevance. And let me tie myself into this. When I went through this show, I had something silly in there. In fact, I had an estrogen block. I had something silly in there, and everybody forgave. I was going to be suspended, but fuck, I was fine. Everybody looked at me, okay, but, we changed the rules and everything was fine. But what I had to live with, what only I knew, there was another test out there. but the results hadn't come back yet. And I didn't know what that test was going to show. I know what it could have shown. I know what it should have shown, but I know what the other test could have and should have as well. So you're sitting there hoping, how good is this damn test? That's all you're thinking about.
Well, you and I had a conversation.
You're the guy called. You were on stage, and I'm blowing you up. You're like, hey, man, I'm doing a show. Can I call you tomorrow? I go, tonight. I will say capital letters. Tonight. I need to hear from you tonight.
Yeah, I remember the exact words. He said, well, you know, we were wondering how stringent these new tests are. Turns out they're really good.
Turns out it's a pretty good test. Turns out it's not like the old 1-800-request a test that costs $99. Okay, there's a reason this test is $40+ grand. But the thing that I'm wondering, does John have another test out there? If he does, it doesn't mean it's going to come back. But that was the same spot I was in. There was a shoe that could drop. For me, it did. For him, is there another
Okay, it's looking pretty good at this point.
I've got some explaining to do. If you're telling me a guy that's got a track record, the tested positive for get a fight, the biggest fight of his career, and the last time you tested him was 1 month before the bout, then Osada's got some explaining to do. But there's more to the story. Now, what do we hear it? Does he pass? Does he end up in the spot? I don't know, but that's the piece that's still missing.
Well, there's one aspect to his test, his positive test, that people are saying could possibly play a factor, and it's a supplement. That he could possibly have been taking something that, like, this is what happened to Kim Means, this is what happened to Yoel Romero, where they get a supplement and it says it has a bunch of stuff on it. It says you look through the ingredients, okay, creatine, B12, we're good. But then, when you run it through a lab, it turns out there's a bunch of other stuff in there too. And that's why it's so effective, and that's why it sells. So it is possible that could be the case. We don't know yet, because then if that's the case,
come on, why did I even grab that?
All the supplements that he was taking, and then they have to go to a store, buy them independently, test them, and verify that these ingredients were in not just the batch that he hands them, but also in other batches. So it's not.
Oh, dude, that glue.
But estrogen blockers are usually when people are getting off of steroids.
Right. When you're coming off a cycle. Yeah, and it's a blocker. You know, men don't want estrogen anyway, but it's a blocker. It's not going to. So as far as that substance goes, and that's all he's going to have to live with. He's not going to have to live with speculation.
Explain how they work. Like for someone that doesn't know.
All that an estrogen blocker will do, if you up your testosterone, then your estrogen is naturally up. And guys don't want estrogen. So if you're a guy, you take a blocker that can block that, bring it in, you won't get, the man boobs. Or there you go. I'm trying to think of the word. Gapsto. I can't. Bitch tits is all that comes to mind. I can't think of the word.
Gynomatica.
At any rate, it can stop some of those things. So that's the speculation. The reason that it's on the list is they find that that's the way they can catch you after the fact. Hey, if we miss you in the cycle, we can catch you here.
Well, it's not just that. The reason why they take it cycle is because you get hypogonadism. Your body stops producing testosterone because you took exogenous testosterone.
That's right.
And so to restart it, they take this stuff, these estrogen blockers.
That's right, yeah. I tested positive for an estrogen blocker, and it was that exact same thing. They banned testosterone. I went on something called HCG, to return your testes back on, and then you have clomiphene, which is, by definition, an estrogen blocker for that same thing, but it can also help get your body going back on testosterone. So they're banned. John's got a problem. Again, this comes back to the press conference. He said, I have not taken anything new that I had not taken my entire career. So somebody gave him a follow-up question. He quickly realized what he just said. And he goes, well, I do have a new supplement company. I have taken some new supplements. So he realized he put himself in one pool. He needed to get out of it. The supplement company then, who dropped him immediately, quickly came out with a press release that do not put this on us. We don't have anything to do with that, and we'll turn over any samples you want. So that's the downside to holding the press conference, is if there's anything the commission hates,
catching up here a little bit,
it's when somebody isn't honest with them. Well, if there's anything USADA hates, and it's what Lance Armstrong found out, it's when you deny the scientific accuracy of their test. That's the risk with holding a press conference. That's why most legal teams will tell you, go home, be quiet, the right to remain silent, execute that,
build up that weapon,
get sworn in, say your piece, and then go on about your life.
How does John not have a trusted handler? How does John not have someone who realizes that you don't just have, like, a high-level athlete. You have arguably the greatest light heavyweight of all time, who has not, in my opinion, reached his potential. potential yet.
What?
I think John
Son of a...
massive potential outside of what he's actually shown. Because when he moved out,
Oh, come
we saw
on.
he was training all the time, and we saw the most recent footage before he fought Oven St. Preux, where he's powerlifting. He looks fucking huge. He's dedicated. He's eating clean. He's making these Instagram videos of all this healthy food he's eating. We're assuming he's getting the proper rest and all those other things. We're assuming, okay, the wild man days are gone. He's still got the wild man's mind, but now he's going to approach this like a real competitive athlete. Here's my question. When someone is wild and talented and impulsive, just a wild motherfucker like John Jones is it even smart to rein that guy in? Can it affect him? I mean, is it a positive thing to rein him in? Or is part of what he
Oh, dude, what do you do to that?
he's so good, and why he's willing to open with a flying knee on Shogun, their first fight. I mean, the first fight for a title. It was 23?
Yeah,
23,
24.
He opens up with a flying knee on, one of the legends of MMA, former Pride champion, or Pride Grand Prix champion, and UFC champion as well. You look at a guy like John, and the way he competes, and the way he's so creative and wild in there, and impulsive. It's almost like that's a part of his success.
I fully agree, and historically I could bring up athletes where that is true, where they go sober, where they go straight and narrow, when they find God, whatever these things are, and they change something, that, yeah, the dominoes start to fall. The problem is when you got a wild man like John, he's in a box, and it's a loose box, and he's having some fights, but usually that continues to escalate. So he kind of needs to keep himself right in that framework. And the bad news is it usually just keeps pushing. So
That's a very important
that becomes a problem.
That's a very important point where people escalate things. Like billionaires want more billions, right? They want islands now. They want fucking jets and spaceships. And with a pro athlete or a wild person who's doing crazy shit, they want to do more crazy shit. They want to drive 150 miles an hour.
Right.
They want to... man, but it just seems like whatever the fuck you do, just nerf everything around him,
Right.
Buy up the town.
Yeah.
Fucking have 3 guys that he trusts following him around everywhere and make sure that he doesn't eat anything he's not supposed to eat.
Sure.
Don't take any pills you're not supposed to take.
Most of them don't drive. I mean, that was his biggest problem, was getting behind the wheel in front of everything else he was doing. It's like, John, you got to get a chauffeur, you got to get Uber, you got to take a taxi. Don't get behind the wheel. That was the most of his problems. You had some other ones, but that was the most of it. You just took him out of the driver's seat. A lot of this doesn't exist.
Yeah, a lot of it doesn't exist, but this most recent one obviously does. And the most, you had the 2 major car accidents. You had that beautiful Bentley and slid it into a tree.
Right.
And then, obviously, the one where he crashed in that woman and left the scene of the crime, which was horrendous. He survived that, though.
Yeah.
He survived that. He came back to the Open St. Preux fight. He won. He beat a top 6 guy on short notice. And then this happened. And to get positive on something as
Oh, no.
with his estrogen blocker.
Yeah, I agree. So you go back to that Open St. Preux fight. Single worst performance of John's career. Single worst fight, light year. Then you break it down a little further. He won the grappling, he won the striking, he won every round. He didn't back off. He didn't get tired. He was stronger, and that was on a bad day.
I didn't think it was a bad fight. Everyone says it's the single worst performance. I have a great deal of respect for Oven St. Preux. I think Oven is a very dangerous guy. He's very explosive. His left power kick is extremely strong. He has nasty left hook. He's a southpaw, and he fights odd. He has a very odd style.
I would agree about Oven. I think your assessment there is fair, and I think his stock went up that night. But when I'm watching John, I'm going, okay, this is a rusty John. This is slower. The output's a little bit down.
What happens when you lose that shotgun?
That day, he left with a world championship. That's how good he is. The other side of John, when you're talking about the car wrecks, or we're talking about the cocaine, or what he's going through now, and again, this is my takeaway from the press conference.
1581320.
Was John
This is at Baz.
And it's like, John, at some point,
as I showed at the beginning, that is Wolf MAME 175.
I don't know why God put
Enter my initials here.
For a reason. I'm going to come out better on the other side. It's like, John, you're acting like you got diagnosed with diabetes or cancer or something, that you're the victim. You were in a hit and run. You did the hitting and you did the running. That was your fault. On the cocaine thing, you didn't say somebody flipped me a Mickey. You said I was at a party in Brazil. I rolled up 100.
1581320.
Now you're in a jam here for 2 banned substances, and you're still not.
And that is
you think God's put you in this spot.
Wolfman
You put
175.
yourself in this spot, and at some point, if you're the baddest
Doesn't say
in the
Wolf,
world,
but I
you are.
assume that
You gotta man up on
175
these
is good
things.
enough.
You got to man up and go, hey, I'm guilty, and how exactly it happened, I'm going to try to figure that out. But I'm definitely guilty. USADA does a good job. I trust those labs. Let's get to the bottom of it.
Jail, son, in public relations. This is what we need. We need
You
an
gotta man
earpiece.
up.
Need a little earpiece. You put in John Jones' ear. You sit behind the screens. You have a monitor. You go, no, John. This is not
John,
the script.
stop.
Stop right there.